almost 400 years before Daniel and the rest of Yehuda were taken away to Babel land. Shlomo sent ships to remote areas of the earth to set up colonies, and they left waymarks of their presence. Well, let's begin with the first photo that you wanted to show, showing the general area of the stone itself. The covenant stone is in the picture, right?
Yes. That would be the middle picture here, or yeah. Let's look at them in their time frame
Okay.
as they occurred in real time.
Okay.
If you don't mind doing that,
That's
maybe
good.
in a better way. So the middle one here was recorded on my wife's cell phone at 11:45 a.m. Of course, this is Mountain Standard Time. I think most of us have already know the story. We went on vacation to go see the Los Lunas Covenant Stone. And now we've done a few things at this point, and the time has advanced up to about 11:45. And then my grandson and I, as you can see on the picture on the left, we had left the premises of the Covenant Stone and walked up a game trail. Well, you can barely see it on the left picture down at the bottom left-hand corner. There's a little trail there. That's the trail we walked up to get on top of the summit. And we were metal detecting up there. The metal detector went off like a siren, like I've never seen it perform before. We're jumping up and down thinking we hit Fort Knox. I mean, it was incredible, the noise that this metal detector was putting out. And so this happened in proximity to, and we weren't on this rock, we were back on the plateau area when that thing went off, and our backs was turned to this rock. We weren't even looking in this direction. We were looking in the opposite direction, matter of fact. And when this middle picture here, when this manifestation occurred, I would guess it to be almost exactly the same time that our metal detector went off, Lou. The reason I'm saying that is this all happened in a short period of time. This wasn't all day long event. So the manifestation of the light happened at 11:45 a.m. Okay, my grandson and I were on top of that mountain there on the first picture there at 12 o'clock sharp, 15 minutes later. On the other picture where we're down on the ground by the Covenant Stone now, where we walked around that tree and we're standing there, is 12:02 p.m. So that means all this happened within 17 minutes. So that's why I am assuming that when the metal detector was going off like a siren, is it the same exact time that the manifestation of the light appeared to my wife and my granddaughter, who both saw it, by the way. Okay.
There's a scripture that I would think, it just came to my mind, that it involves wherever I cause my name to be honored, I will come to you and bless you. And you wrote his name in Latin letters right next to the Covenant Stone, because everybody else was writing something else. They were writing their own name. But you wrote his name so that people can read it in our language. And I think that's possibly a factor that prompted him to make an appearance and come into this bubble of time that we live in now.
That's correct. And I felt that, and understood that. is what partially is the reason for the manifestation. Now, I did write as soon as I got back home, or we came back home, I should say. I did go on natsarimlife.com and I wrote a real short conclusion to the things that I had felt at the time. And maybe if we have time, I can share that with the audience. But interestingly, since you mentioned the name, maybe I should briefly describe something. Then I want to point something out here on these pictures. And I think I may be able to blow them up. I'm not sure. No, I can't, but you can still see it. Is that when I first walked down to the stone, I was kind of like a magnet. I was drawn down there, and my blood pressure started going up. I felt anger inside myself, down deep into my bones, kind of an anger that I really never felt before. And I didn't know why that was happening, but I marched down there by myself. They were up on the little plateau about 150 feet away, just resting under the umbrella from the hike up the ascension we just did. And as I approached the big stone, I'm going to call this the big stone and then the covenant stone, so we'll keep track of what I'm speaking of here. I noticed that people had written their names on the side of the big stone as I was approaching. It kind of really started angering me even more the closer I got. So then I kind of bluntly just stepped over in front of the covenant stone and stared down at it. And immediately the desecration of the first commandment jumped out at me and made me even more angry. So I stood there staring and turning my head and trying to see his name, see if I could actually still make it out. And I could. I saw the yod, and I kept, trying to look through the scratching, and I saw the hay, and then I made out the uwa, and I couldn't see the last yod. And so I was like, or the last hay, I'm sorry, that I was just struggling. And then I finally did make it out. So the name is still readable, but, it's a strain to see the lines or the actual original inscription. And so I looked over and I seen this oil stain on the left-hand side, which was messing up the second and third command, and even a little bit of the fourth, it looked like there. And you couldn't really see the letters through the oil stain or whatever stain that was. And so I kind of sidestepped a little bit and went around the other end of the covenant stone, and I saw more graffiti, which was people's names. And so about this time, I just felt like my head was going to explode. I was very angry and didn't really know why. But then I heard Yahuwah talk to me in my head, and he said, "They esteem me with their own name." And when I heard that, my blood just boiled. And I kind of had a knee-jerk reaction to that. And I looked down, I saw a black stone, very sharp, looked like a half an arrowhead. And I reached down and I picked that stone up. And then I reached up to scratch his name into the stone. I couldn't inscribe it, get down deep, but you know how you scratch another rock with a rock. And it was underneath the bough of this tree, which is the only tree that was really there. And people have said here of late that they believe this to be a tamaris tree or a terebinth tree, which comes from the Middle East. It's a tree that found in the Middle East. And so I couldn't get way up above the other names because of the branches of the tree were laying on the rock. And if I tried to step up on one of them other rocks to reach up higher, my head would hit the branches. So I just reached up with my arm as far as I could without the tree interfering. And I scratched his name on the side, the right side, if you're looking at it, underneath the bough of the tree there. So if you can see in the picture of me and my grandson standing down on the ground, right up above my head, underneath the tree, you can see the name of Yahuwah. If you see that cursor right there on that picture, and then I underlined it 8 times for 2 reasons. I was highlighting his name, but I also was scratching out the other names that had been written on there. And strangely, this is the correct perspective of us on the ground. You can see the name right over under the tree branches. They're very small. I mean, it can't be more than 8 to 10 inches long. And the tree itself is up against the rock. So much that I couldn't push the branches away to get them out of my way. I had to come down below the branches to write his name. And so in this middle, the photograph of the light, look at the name. My wife, I asked her this morning where exactly was her location when she snapped this picture of the light. And of course, she said I was about in the middle of the Covenant Stone area. So she would have been standing right about here. And she had to stand close to the Covenant Stone because there was all these big giant rocks laying around. You couldn't back up. It was a small, very small area there in front of the Covenant Stone. And she snapped, the light, she said that everything changed, but yet everything remained the same. And at this time, unknowing to her, she revealed also today to me that they were inside of this force field or this interdimensional reality of sorts, whatever this was. This protective shield, force field, whatever you want to call it. And if you notice on this, as it is coming down from the bright light, there's a shield of sorts that comes down over the rock and it's extended out away from the rock. It's not actually down on top of the rock, it's coming out from the rock. And there on the other side of that, between the Covenant Stone and this shield. And so she hears a noise and she knows something weird's going on. That's this really weird noise. And then I didn't know this either, but she said she started hearing singing, but she didn't know the language. It was just singing. And she could hear it in the background real slightly. And then all of a sudden there was another noise that was overtaking that. It sounded like, ah, ooh, ah, ah, ooh, ah. The same sound as our bronchial tubes make when we're breathing in and out. And it's his name. When we breathe, we say his name through our bronchial tubes and our exhaling and our inhaling, right? She didn't know what that was at the time, but I recognized it immediately when later on we got back to the hotel room and I listened to it very closely to my ear. I immediately recognized what the sound was. I didn't hear the singing. And so compared to the picture of us standing on the ground where you can see the true perspective of the scale of everything, and then look back over to the picture with the bright light, you can see that the tree itself has been thinned and pushed back maybe it's not thin, but it appears that the leaves have thinned out, and it's definitely pushed way back off of the rock by this force field. And half of the leaves have turned white on here. These leaves are all the branches have white leaves on them. And you can see down at the very bottom, this big green leaf, half of it is lit up. Right above it is a big white leaf, and this light has shined down on it and changed it as well. But the amazing thing here is that his name here has been magnified. Remember, she's standing over here in front of the covenant rock. Well, this picture, his name is front and center and has been magnified. You can see where I drew the line to highlight his name and also to cross out these other names. Down through here, I drew 8 lines. When you dig down to the bottom, you can see the shield or the shell, the force field, whatever you want to call it, is coming out. It's on the other side of the rock. It's not on the rock, but it's coming out of the rock, down all the way. Okay, so you see where the magnified name is. He circled his name here, pushed the tree leaves back, changed them to white, half of them. You can see the force field, if you really look hard, coming through here and pushing that tree back away. And then there's this circle. He circled his name. And then up here, the bow goes the opposite direction, where this one's coming down and around, circling his name. This one is going up. And looks like it's totally encompassing the white light, but we can't see above it, so we don't know that for sure. Another thing we want to notice here on this, I don't know why that thing's doing that. I'm going to blow this up a little bit. Is on the top here, okay? Are you still seeing that, Lou?
Oh, yes, it's very good.
Okay, so on the top here, at first, when I looked at this, I thought that the light was penetrating this edge of the rock here, which goes all the way across. But what I realized later on was, the more I looked at this was, now this light is setting down on the rock and it's hanging over that edge. And perhaps even penetrating, but it's kind of like, if you really look at it, you can see that the light is actually touching the rock and it's coming over the front of the edge. Keep in mind now, this was 11:45 a.m. 11:45 a.m. The magnification of his name and being encircled, these leaves being pushed back by the force field and turning, half of them turning white, the light laying down on this edge and standing on there, proving that the light is actually touching the rock. It's not up in the sky, is mind-blowing information. And if you can look at this entire picture and you can see the haze. All of our other pictures, every single one, all the other pictures are crystal clear and beautiful taken photos. My wife has a very good camera on her cell phone, one of the best. But yet this picture has a haze, unlike all the other ones. So if you look at the haze and you kind of tip your head and try to go inside of the photo, if you will, by the side, you can almost see that the haze, because the reason that rock is in a haze is because the shield is on the outside of the rock. And my wife and granddaughter was inside of this shield. And look at the tree. It's not really inside of it. It's on the outside of it. It didn't really dull it. It just changed its form in a way. So that's something else that we had mentioned. So a few other things real quick is this is a 12 o'clock sharp. My grandson and I on top of the rock. When he was holding this plane, he was imagining a plane like kids do. And as he held this spade up, this white bow is on this photo at the very tip of that spade he's holding up. That wasn't there. That wasn't there. Before we walked over this rock and the metal detector went nuts, I had looked up into the sky. I said, man, it's getting hot, and I pulled my hat off and I looked up like this, and the sky was straight above us. I mean, the sun was straight above us in the sky. So I knew it was approaching noon, but I didn't know what the exact time was, but I said, I knew midday was coming upon us. And at this time, at least up on that summit that we were, it was probably 108 degrees. It was extremely hot at this point. And I saw the sun. I had to tip my head back like this because it was straight up above us at 12 o'clock. 11:45-ish, about the time that right after that metal detector went crazy. That's when I did that. So it was between 11:45 and straight up noon. Because when we walked over to the top of the rock here, it was 12 o'clock sharp. And then down here to the left, toward the left bottomish of this picture of us on the rock, you can see 4 stone tablets here, possibly 5. I noticed later on that this one had a crack, but I think it's just cracked. So I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the diagonal one, top 5 stone tablets there in that picture. And then over here with the picture of us on the ground, you can see these big round rocks. And there's like 4 or 5 of them laying there, and they're huge, and they're round like a cannonball of sorts, or a huge bowling ball or something, which they seem to be out of place, and kind of strange that they're even there. So here in this proximity, the middle picture of the marvelous light here, it's 11:45 a.m. The one here with Case and I on top of the rock is 12 o'clock sharp. And the picture over here of Case and I on the ground, we just came around that tree, came down and around the tree, is 12:02. So it took us 2 minutes to come down off of that rock. So now you can see that it put everything in perspective on a timeline. So these are the 3 main pictures, okay, of this spiritual journey. And we have 4 witnesses here. All right. The one witness is this picture itself. How do we deny this picture? It's an original picture. We haven't fooled with that. I'm not smart enough to Photoshop a picture or stage some kind of a event that didn't really happen. I can't do that. I don't have those skills. This is an original picture extracted from my wife's cell phone. So that's the first witness we have. The second witness is my wife. She heard the noise. When we were on top, my wife and my granddaughter was right at the covenant stone, which proves that they were standing in the middle of the covenant stone, a little to the left when she snapped that picture. She went over around the rock and take the picture of the name. She was in front of the covenant stone because what those two were doing where they were running their fingernails up and down in the Hebrew letters, script. And they were both doing it. They were Sophie, my granddaughter was putting her little fingers in there, and my wife was running her fingers through there. So that proves where they were when this manifestation happened. And my wife was talking to Yahuwah while they were doing this. All right. So when I asked, okay, so here, that's my wife is the second witness. As soon as they were doing that, she heard the noise. She knew everything changed, but yet remained the same. That's her words. And then she knew that there was something weird. She realized later on that force field had come down and had trapped them. They were trapped between the force field and the covenant stone. And that's why everything changed, but remained the same. Then she heard the sound, which she did record after the light went away. And then she saw the light. With her own eyes, she saw the light. She couldn't look at it. She had to close her eyes hard, very tight, turn her head, hold her arm, send her arm out, and snap this picture that we're looking at in front of the covenant stone. And she wasn't doing around the corner. She was pointing it straight up where she knew the light was, but she couldn't look at it. She heard some singing, like a choir. Didn't understand the words though. And then she saw the light and turned her head very quickly from the light. That's witness number 2. Witness number 3 is my granddaughter, 6 years old. And I asked her just a few questions because I didn't want to overwhelm her. And I said, look, when that light appeared, did you see it? She said, yes. And I said, did you hear any noise? No. Maybe perhaps she didn't recognize it, for what it was. Who knows? She's just a little girl. But she said no. So we'll take that as an answer. So then I said, well, let me ask you just one more question. She goes, okay, Paul. I said, when you saw the light, was it sitting on that rock or was it way up in the sky over there, hanging in the sky? Oh, no, Paul, it was on the rock. And then some days later, she came up to me and she goes, hey, Paul. And I said, yeah. She goes, you know that light? And I said, yeah. She says, when I looked at that light, it hurt my eyes. And I said, oh, really? You didn't tell me that? She goes, yeah. And they still kind of hurt a little bit still. And then she started rubbing them. I said, huh? She goes, yes, if I blink or if I shut my eyes real tight, she goes, they still hurt. That was a few days ago. Out of nowhere, she approached me and said that. So there's witness number 3. And witness number 4 is my metal detector. My metal detector, for those people that know how to go treasure hunting, is an Equinox 800 model. So most of you know that do treasure hunting that's one of the better models on the market. It's not a cheap metal detector. This metal detector went off like I hit Fort Knox. About the same time that she saw this light. Like a siren. I mean, it maxed out. No matter what I did, no matter what I did with the settings or positions or angles or anything I did in Treasure Hunters, that metal detector was going nuts, full bore. Until I think the light went away and then it stopped. And guess what? No matter what I did, that thing would not go back off, not even a beep. So there's your 4th witness to what happened here. All right. So there you go, Lou.
Well, that's absolutely incredible. The coalescence of all these factors that come with you being there and your family and you writing his name. And you wrote it when you were pretty angry. So you can see that. And you wrote it bigger and more substantial than the other names that were around it. These are all amazing things. And it's something that he said he would do. He would, whenever his name would be honored, he would come to in any place on the earth. He would come there and bless you. And being in his presence is a serious blessing. Well, he's everywhere, but you know, this manifestation is a special thing. Thanks for sharing these pictures and your journey, because this is an amazing thing. And others need to see it.
Yeah. On the other video we did just a few days ago, Lou, we've had, you know, I'm sure you've read some of the comments as well, but I don't know what I just did here. But did I do something there? I mean, I can stop sharing. I don't know what I did. Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah.
All right. Some of the comments was a little bit skeptical, you know, which is understandable. I mean, none of us can believe. We can't have any type of belief without Yahuwah giving us the gift of belief. So it's not really their fault or anything, and I surely don't take anything personally. But I would like to address one comment where they were accusing us of being false messiahs and false prophets, that were saying that Yahushua was out in the desert and they shouldn't go out there. They were trying to connect that somehow.
Yeah.
Was taken totally out of context, folks. You know, and that particular passage in Matthew 24 is describing the second coming of Yahushua. It's not describing Mark August vacation. All right. And so at the coming of second coming of Yahushua, we're going to receive a sign first. It's going to be like lightning from the east to the west. It's going to be like a super mega flash. And then he's going to come back. We're going to see him then. This isn't about his second coming. This was just us on our vacation. And he manifested himself to my wife and my granddaughter. Because why? Because he chose to. You know, Yahuwah can do whatever Yahuwah wants to do. Yahuwah is everything. And then the rest of the comment was, well, that event is not recorded in scriptures. And I would just like to say to that is that we can't contain Yahuwah or his activities within the covers of scripture. You know, Yahuwah can do whatever he wants. We have to stop trying to confine him and define him. He cannot be contained. He cannot be defined by us. It's above our heads. It's above our pay grades. We're servants. And what we need to do is be obedient and serve him the best we can, the best of our abilities. So that's totally out of context. And if you do want to, anybody here really wants to dig into scriptures and try to find some kind of comparison of this manifestation in scriptures, I would suggest looking into Acts. Paul had 3 similar manifestations where he saw Yahushua as a marvelous light. Matter of fact, it blinded him. So you may want to read up on those 3 occurrences. And if you want to compare this experience to something in scripture, I think that'd be the place I would go. It definitely is not anything to do with the second return, the second coming of Yahushua in Matthew 24. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Wasn't Exodus or Shemot 33 another incident where he, Musha or Moses asked him to show him his goodness, and he stuck him between a rock, and he said, I'll pass before you, but you'll only see my backside. And it was, as he went by, there was a voice that proclaimed his name, just similar to what you described in your experience.
Yes, sir. He actually told Yahuwah actually told Moshe that when he walked by, he would proclaim his name so that Moshe would know that it was Yahuwah that walked by.
Yeah.
That's why he did that. So there would be no doubt in Moshe's mind it was Yahuwah, because as he walked by, he's going to tell him, Yahuwah, proclaim his name to him, so he knew he was really seeing Yahuwah. And that's kind of similar to what happened here to us. I mean, he proclaimed his name first, and then he circled and magnified his name so that we all would know that the marvelous light on top of that rock was Yahuwah. It's a very comparable to Moshe's experience.
It was an unapproachable intensity, wasn't it?
Well, according to the witnesses, they neither one could look at it. They had to turn their heads immediately. And I think by talking to the two girls that, I want to remind everybody, I didn't say nothing. I was the dummy up on top of the rock searching for earthly treasure. I'm like all of you, and that's what we're all doing. And Yahuwah wants us to stop doing it. I didn't say nothing, but according to the two witnesses, the two girls, it was extremely bright. Sophie, my granddaughter, said, I thought it was the sun. And of course, I've taught the children not to look at the sun for a long time period or it would blind them. So I'd already programmed that into their little minds. And so when she thought it was the sun, she immediately closed her eyes. But I have a feeling she looked at it longer than my wife did. And that's why her eyes remained hurting a little while afterwards, almost a week and almost just a few days ago is when it stopped hurting, she said, on a couple of days ago. So maybe she had looked longer being a child,
A brother, his son had gone to see the same stone you did, and it affected them too. And they brought some pictures back. You want to take a minute and look at these that he sent me?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see if I can find a share screen button here.
Okay, I think I stopped share, so I think you're clear to go.
All right, let's see. I'll have to drag that out of the way, and I'll just share my screen. Screen. There it is.
I don't see anything.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Now I'm starting to, something's happening.
Yeah, there it is. I'll make this bigger. See right here. I'll blow this up a little maybe, and you'll be able to see it. But anyway, in this picture, you see I've decorated it with a little shiny spot, but I want to focus on that oval up there. I expanded this area right here so you can see the yod, the hay, the ua, and the hay, and I've described them. And then there's another picture that I have that is very interesting, and that's the one behind it. And this is where you can see the covenant stone was damaged at the time this was done. They molested it.
Yeah.
And let's see if I can make that bigger. Resize. well, I don't want to resize the image, but I'd like to make it bigger. But
Yeah, we can see it fairly well.
yeah, well, there it is. The Shumeron script, which is Hebrew, from the land of the northern tribes. You've got a shape of the yod that looks like this right here, and then the hey. That's yod hey, ua hey. The ua looks a little bit like a y in their technique, and that's an expansion of this area of the stone, right? You just look. I made it a little bigger, and this is the whole stone in the picture with the mutilation.
It looks exactly as we saw it, with minus the oil spot.
Right. Yeah, the oil spot really messed it up.
Yeah, my wife said she felt that though that oil spot was someone's attempt to anoint the rock with oil, and they used the wrong type of oil, which basically blocked the inscription out, some of the letters out.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, people are not as careful with things like this as they should be. I mean, this is the 10 to borrow, this is something that we're supposed to wake up in the morning saying and going to bed saying, right? This is important stuff.
Oh yeah, I do it many times a day.
And not only that, it's inscribed on our hearts after
Yeah.
we enter into the everlasting covenant, right?
Right.
If you should inscribe these exact words on our heart, puts them in our mind.
If pastors had taught the 10 Commandments as they are really written in the true meaning with the name, instead of the fake names and removal of his name, if they taught them, then they wouldn't have any problem with the issues of evolution nor abortion, because the world has been walking in darkness more and more as time goes on, because the pastors have not done their job. And instead, they've been doing the opposite, saying legalism. And where's that? I mean, in scripture, he wants us legal, but they teach against legalism, or legalists. They accuse you of, they use that word like heretics. Like, what are you doing? And then that's because of another doctrine called dispensational theology. They think things have changed because we're in a new dispensation. But really, Yahuwah does not change. That's why he wrote it in a rock. Yeah. And his servants wrote it in a rock. Well, I love that, those pictures. I can see them much better in this video.
Yeah, and that was the goal. There was people that were asking to see them bigger, and so that hopefully that helps them actually see what's going on there. And I think I made most of the fine points that I could remember that we spotted as we were going through this thing for days now, right? But yeah, the message is clear that we don't do what I was doing. I'm the example. I'm the scapegoat, if you will. I'm the example. Do not do what I was doing. Don't go out looking for earthly treasure to fill your safer bolts with.
Yeah.
Okay, they all perish, at least the darkness and death. That's all treasure does. It's not going to do anything else for you than that.
Yeah.
So stop seeking the things of this world and start seeking Yahuwah while you still can, while he's available. Because the day's coming where he's not going to be available anymore. And the second fold message of that, as I was given, we were seeing the double rainbow at the end of Yom Shabbat, the day after, is that we're entering the days of Noah that the scripture warns us about. Look around you. I shouldn't have to say much more than that. And so altogether now, I believe that this is a sign of his second coming is getting near. And I think it's a big warning, and it's something everybody better get right in their minds. This
Mark,
is not a small sign.
Mark, would you be able to share screen that picture in the evening of the Sabbath when you saw that double rainbow outside your hotel?
Yeah, I believe I can. Let me get back over to the share screen here. If I remember how to do it. Okay, so I click on share screen. And then, no, that's not what I want. That's what we did yesterday. So going there, and wait a minute now. I know what I got to do. Hang on. I first got to double click on the picture. That's what I got to do. All right, there we go. Now I'll show you can do it. Okay. I'm learning, Margaret. Have patience.
Wonderful job.
All right, let me go. We're going to share screen now. And there it is.
There you go. All right.
See it? Is it nice and big?
Yes.
Okay, so here it's Yom Shabbat. It's the next day. We went home. Kind of ironic, kind of funny in a way. We couldn't look at the pictures on the way home in the car or anything or there at the location because my wife's battery was dying. And so she was being real stingy with her phone and watching her charging time on it. And by the time we did get back to the hotel room, her battery was dead. So I said, Pamela, let's take a look at those pictures you took. And she said, my phone's dead. And I said, well, put it on the charger, man. I mean, some time went by before she put it on the charger. So she got on the charger. Several hours later, when it occurred back to me again to look at them, I said, hey, is your phone charged yet? She went back over and grabbed it. And that's, when we saw everything. And that was that evening before we went to bed. But Yom Shabbat had started, of course, because it had gotten dark. So the next day, we're kicking back in our hotel room, being obedient to the fourth commandment. And my granddaughter was over by this window, and she had her chair was turned where she could look out. And pretty soon she hollered out, hey, Paul, come and look, there's a rainbow. And I said, well, I've seen a lot of rainbows. I don't need to see another one right now. I was busy, doing something. I can't remember what I was doing. And so then she goes, no, Paul, this one's very special. You better come and look. So I got up, went over, patted her on the head and looking out the window at the rainbow. And I said, yeah, it's a beauty. You could see both ends. And even the double rainbow that went over top of it, which you can't really make out in this picture, I could also see both ends of that rainbow as well. So I didn't think a whole lot about it. I said, yeah, it's pretty special. And then she stayed there and looked at that for a long time. She was having a ball with it. But later on, after I got back home and I was looking through these pictures, I came to these rainbow pictures. I kind of was speaking to Yahuwah in my mind, like I always do. And I was like, what's this got to do with anything? Because at this point, I had a real good understanding of the spiritual journey he took us on. And that's when I realized, the realization came to me that this was indicating that we are entering into the days of Noah and he would soon return. And
that's what I wanted to hear you say. That's it. Wow.
And I don't know, Lew, I got this one here too. I could show you real quick before we get off. This is the famous Bigfoot step. Can you see it? Is it big?
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I can even blow it up a little bit.
16
now.
inches long, isn't it?
I know what I'm doing. Yeah, this is about 16 to 18 inches long. At my guesstimate, which I'm, building engineer, stationary engineer, HVAC, a business owner, spent many years fabricating sheet metal. And so I can guess it lengths pretty good. To me, this was 16 inches long, just like glancing at it. And so, You can see it's it's not noon anymore, obviously, because you can see my wife's shadow. She's holding up her phone and taking this picture. You can see her phone's about 6 inches long. It's a Galaxy Z3 or Fold 3 5 phone.
Yeah.
A really great camera. So it's about 6 inches long. When she unfolds it, it becomes like a little tablet. And she takes this picture, so you can see it's about 3 times that, so maybe 18 inches if you use the phone as a measure. But I would say it was slightly less than that. But anyway, as we looked at this photo for a few days, we came to the conclusion that this thing had 6 toes. The heel is perfectly round. You couldn't make a better heel if you wanted to. And the weight of whoever made this footprint collapsed down about a ½ inch down in there because of the washout of the creek next to it, come up underneath the surface of the road and washed it out. So this footprint collapsed. And that's why it was there. Other than that, that was hard, very hard ground. You can see it's parched. And so this was also a spiritual message that Yahuwah shared with us all, that some people have what he called Bigfoot syndrome. And this is where, although 10,000 people see something, the one person standing there listening to all those 10,000 testimonies still doesn't believe. They're so self-absorbed within themselves, narcissist type people. And unless they see it, those 10,000 are liars. And he said, this is what you're dealing with out there when you're giving testimony and witnessing to people. But it's a powerful message, really.
Was this photo taken after you were on your way back?
Yeah, we left and we were on our way back, and we were about, I want to guess, 75 to 100 yards from our vehicle, and when we spotted this. So this is like, do you believe that a man made this footprint? Yeah, we all agree to that. Was it a giant with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, as scripture describes? Maybe. Is it Shaq O'Neal out there running around the desert? Maybe. Is it Bigfoot?
Mm-hmm.
There's 10,000, there are 100,000 witnesses in this country that say he's real.
Yeah, it's so hard to get out to that area where you were. It took you, 2 hours to get to it. You were walking through treacherous terrain in an intense heat. So somebody wouldn't just do this randomly and say, well, I'm going to put this big footprint here. But you can see the weight of this object must have compressed that soil. It isn't like this is an accident, or somebody contrived it. You didn't do it, did you?
My foot ain't 16 inches long.
No.
Can't be me.
No, we didn't have anything. I mean, you didn't have anything to do with this. This is just part of the message.
They just got a little tiny thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyways, I think this is going together with saying that, hey,
Yeah.
the reason this rebellious or stubborn person will not believe is because Yahuwah himself did not give them the gift of belief. And so, no, we can't believe on our own. It has to come from Yahuwah.
Right.
He gives the gift of belief according to what he knows is in your heart. If we have a pure heart, or someone has a pure heart, then Yahuwah sends them belief. Without Yahuwah, we can do nothing. It's up to him whether you believe or not.
Yeah.
It's not up to us. We can't do nothing without Yahuwah.
Yeah. putting all this in context, though, it's just overwhelming. It can't be an accident. This is all in a short period of time that you were there, and you just happen to randomly find all these things. It's just amazing.
It's as the days go on, more and more of it surfacing, just like with the interview you did to me a few days ago or yesterday, whenever it was. As we were speaking right around the 33-minute and 7-second mark on the timeline, this menorah appears.
That was actually something I did not remember. It was still in a previous video that I used as a template, and I had not removed that, and I didn't know that I hadn't. And when you first asked me about that, I said, no, I didn't put anything.
Yeah, and so we talked about that, and I said to you, it's still amazing, Lew, because how did you wipe out the entire presentation or the interview, and this frame got stuck there and appeared at that precise moment in the interview?
Yeah.
The moment that it appeared was when we were speaking about light frequencies.
Yeah, that's the light. That's the symbol.
That's kind of weird.
Lampstand.
It just seems to just keep going on and on, with all these breadcrumbs, but
Yes.
I think, it's up to Yahuwah for the ones that believe, and they get the message that he's coming back soon. We're getting close to the days of Noah's upon us, and which is what scripture says. And we're not running around telling people he's over here in the desert and he's over here in this room. Nor are we saying that we're the Messiah or that he sent any prophecy to them.
And we're not saying to go out there to look at it either. We're saying take this information and look at his covenant and read it and try to understand it. Ask him if he'll write it on your heart and walk in obedience, and he'll do that. He only gives the Spirit to those that obey.
Right. You got to get his Ruach in you, and he'll only give to those who are obedient. So obedience to his Torah is extremely vitally important if you're seeking deliverance or you're seeking to be engrafted into Yisrael and become his bride and be part of the everlasting covenant. And all that comes through obedience and endurance of your obedience. It never ends. So the Torah has not been abolished. There's many prophecies still in Torah that have not been fulfilled yet, which means the Torah is still legit. It's not irrelevant like many people try to say. It's real stuff. It's powerful stuff. And if we want to find the true treasure, which is everlasting life in the Mashiach, and we need to be obedient to his words, his commands.
Yeah.
And do it now while he can still be found. Time's running out.
Yeah. When the lights go out, they're going to stay out, and the internet is going to end. So you need to get this information real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Natsarim are here to help. We're not here to lead you astray. We're here to help possibly wake you up so that Yahuwah can bring you out of the delusion that's been cast on us since birth. Religions, superstitions, this kind of things, traditions are all part of the delusion that the uninformed teachers are teaching people. And since childhood, we've all heard it, and it's all based on falsehood, such as Santa Claus and Easter Bunny and things like this. It's not real. And so we're programmed to love lies and accept lies above truth as a child. This is all part of Hashatan's activity, which is sin. Sin is lawlessness. You need to come out of the world, just like I went into the world when I entered across the scale, which found the scale tipped against me. I entered into the landfill. That's the world where all the corruption, decay, and death is. I did a U-turn, came back across the other scale after I cleaned myself up, and Yahuwah weighed me again, and this time the scale tipped in my favor, and I was allowed to cross over the scale and enter onto the the road that many are called to walk upon. And then eventually the few that are chosen to walk the narrow path, which got narrower and more narrow and more narrow as we walked, heading for the light.
Yeah, you cover all that in the first video that we did a few days ago.
Yeah,
And that is amazing. Yeah.
Amazing spiritual journey is what this is, not for just me and my family, but for all the Natsarim and for everyone else that would like to know Yahuwah and come out of the darkness into his marvelous light.
Yeah, listen to his ambassadors. The Natsarim are here. We've been raised up in prophecy. Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah 31 verse 6 says in the last days that Natsarim, the branches, will rise on the mountain of Ephraim and cry out, return, and let's go up to the mountain. Let's go up to the mountain of Yahuwah. And being ambassadors, our goal is to be used by Yahusha to within us. He's crying out as if he's talking it through us to be restored to favor.
Yeah, and I'd like to take this moment to invite you to go back to Los Lunas with me someday soon, Lew, because there's a lot of other things out there that we can really get into. And everyone else that may be thinking about taking a trip to Los Lunas and seeing the Covenant Stone, there's only one thing I can promise you, that you're going to see a rock with Hebrew script written on it. I can't promise you that Yahusha is going to appear to you in his marvelous light form. I'm not sending you there to see that, but I will promise you, you will see a big rock with the Hebrew script.
Well, thank you, Mark. This is wonderful. Thanks for revisiting this with us.
Thank you, Lew. Thank you, Margaret.
Okay. Well, we'll see everybody. Bye.
Baruch haba b'shem Yahuwah.
Almost 400 years before Daniel and the rest of Yehuda were taken away to Babel land, Shlomo sent ships to remote areas of the earth to set up colonies, and they left waymarks of their presence.